Chicago. So next we have Kuehn.
Good morning. I was actually not supposed to be the speaker here from British Columbia. It was supposed to be Jenny Sims, who was the president of our union, the British Columbia Teachers Federation, when we had a 2-week illegal strike in 2005. However, 2 months ago, Jenny got elected to the National Parliament in Canada. So she's struggling for us in another arena at this stage. I want to talk about, just give you a bit of context to British Columbia, and then talk about 5 areas that we focused on in the last decade. In 2001, we had a right-wing government elected in British Columbia. It's called the BC Liberal Party. In Canada, the Liberals are the right-wing. And they, within a matter of months, brought in legislation to strip from our collective agreement all the provisions on class size, on class composition, and staffing formulas that we had negotiated over the previous dozen years. And they did that in order to chop the education budgets. And we lost 3,000 teachers out of 35,000 just overnight when that happened. So we just decided that we had to, that this was likely to be a long-term struggle. And so we developed a strategy that was initially a 5-year strategy for how we were going to try to regain the positions that we had lost, but also the labor rights that had been taken away in the course of this. And it wasn't only teachers, but also healthcare workers who faced that particular situation. For us, the key element in the first years was very mentioned, as Gabrielle mentioned, reaching out to the public, trying to get the public to understand that, and particularly parents in that public, what was happening. So we worked very hard at framing the issues around class size and class compositions and special needs. We tracked what was going on. We've had 200 school closures in this last decade. We focused on the impact that closing schools has on the community, particularly in our province, which is at least 4 times larger than Great Britain, and has many very small communities. And the school is the central public institution in those communities. And you close the school, you close the community in many ways. So we focused on all of that. And I'll just tell you about one particular thing we did, was the development of a charter for public education. We got together a group of people from the community and one from the union who traveled around our province and had open meetings for anyone who wanted to come and talk about education. They started by talking about the cuts and the problems that were there, but so the commissioners said, no, we don't want to hear about those cuts. We know they're happening, we know that they're damaging, but really what we want to do is to hear what you would like education to be like. What should public education be like? And after they heard from hundreds of people around the province, they created a charter for public education. And it's essentially the dreams that the community has about what public education could be. And that then became an organizing tool for us, both in the process of building it and in pursuing it afterwards. I brought a few copies of the charter for you to see that I'll put out later. So, reaching to the public and framing the issues was number one. Secondly, we wanted to go into bargaining in 2005 to try to regain some of what we had lost. And the legislature simply passed a piece of legislation which ordered us back to work. We hadn't even gone on strike yet, and we were ordered back to work, which then generated the 2-week illegal strike. And we were successful in that strike because of the work we had done with the public and the parents ahead of time. The government had eventually to reach an agreement with us because the public was with us and was not with the government. You know, so that 5 years of work was, you know, paid off at that stage. I'll quickly just run through a few other things. We've had court challenges to have freedom of speech when they tried to shut us down. And we took a case to the Supreme Court and won on the basis that the right to collective bargaining is guaranteed in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada. This is equivalent to your Bill of Rights, but it now protects collective bargaining rights as well through the courts. Communications with members are, you know, a key element to our success. We have been building the various social networking tools. We're now in a strike position again. We had a strike vote last week, the last week of school, and about a 90% support for that. So we'll be starting a strike in September when school starts again. But it's a teach-only strike. We will teach, we'll run extracurricular activities, but we won't have to do anything of the kinds of record keeping and et cetera. Many of our members said that's the kind of strike they'd like to be on for the rest of their career. You know, and mobilization of the members is obviously a really key element. If you don't have, you know, the members really understanding and carrying the message to the community, to their neighbors, etc., then you don't have the kind of basis that we need. So I'll just quickly say the 5 things, and I'd be happy to talk to people about them later. Communicating with the public, bargaining, court challenges, communication with members, and mobilization of members are the 5 kinds of areas of focus that we put on. I'd just like to finish though with, you know, international solidarity as a factor as well. We've been working with Mary Luz and folks in Mexico since 1993 and NAFTA in a tri-national coalition. And when we were out on strike, our colleagues in Mexico set up a protest outside of the Canadian Embassy in Mexico City in support of teaching. And that was a real morale booster. You know, that's one of the things that international solidarity can do is support people, you know, when they're in the struggle. The other thing they did though was that the courts were threatening to make us shut down our email and website. And the folks in Mexico created a website that we would be able to use to communicate with our members if the courts closed our down. So it's both in symbolic and in very concrete ways, it's a very important aspect of keeping the morale of members up in that kind of situation. Thank you.